Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our student webinar on setting targets for responsible and sustainable growth as part of our Business Pledge program. To give you a brief introduction to those of you that aren't quite familiar with the PAL initiative, we are the region's only non-profit business organisation founded to promote corporate culture of accountability, transparency, and corporate governance across the Gulf region's private sector. In light of the recent public health pandemic, our knowledge sharing events, unfortunately, are in-person events, our seminars, our business workshops and roundtables. And of course, your student sessions have all shifted to virtual webcam. Thank you for joining with us and joining these webinars. I know it's not quite the same as an in-person event, you don't get the interaction and engagement there, but we're trying to facilitate that. And you'll notice that on this webinar platform, there is a forum for you to ask questions through to the facilitator. So we're trying to emulate a real life experience as much as we can. So thank you for bearing with us in that regard. As I mentioned, today's webinar is being held as part of our Business Pledge, which was developed in 2017 to call upon senior business leaders in the Gulf region to make a public commitment to adhere to principles of ethical and responsible conduct when interacting with society doing business. This webinar will discuss how businesses play an essential role in promoting real, responsible and lasting growth in the Gulf region, which leads to long-term sustainable development. This webinar will also give an overview about the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and align the importance of sustainable thinking and its correlation with employability as sustainability careers emerge in the market. You as students can take part in depth, and what we encourage you to do is to write a one-page case study on today's discussion. And then we will review these and hopefully we can upload them on our website or use them on our Business Pledge compilation report. The idea is that when we receive your case study, you build best practices, you build data and information that we can disseminate to the wider market. Other businesses can reference these, other organizations can see what other businesses are doing, and we can educate others on practical initiatives that are being taken by organizations. So please do try and submit these pledges. Sanjay is happy to receive those and review them, and we can make sure that these case studies are shared among our wider stakeholders and our partner companies, approximately 35 companies, and obviously add value, hopefully, to the market and promote change for good. So please do submit those. Today's speaker, Ms. Shahada Al-Fai, is a senior consultant in EY's Climate Change and Sustainability Services team in Dubai. She offers her technical expertise for projects dealing with energy management, carbon footprints, emission reduction strategies, and sustainability advisory. Shahada has also played a pivotal role in developing an automated inventory reporting system for Gulf countries and in developing emission reduction strategies and energy management systems for a major utility in the region. Again, as I mentioned, please do take advantage of Shahada's knowledge. She's very kindly given up her time to present this for us and impart her expertise and experience and knowledge upon all of us today. So do leverage that and capitalize on as much as you can. And let us know as well if there's any way that PAL Initiative can support you in your endeavors as students or beyond, and if there's anything we can do to help you in that regard. So again, please we like to keep it as interactive as possible, so do participate, and please do let us know your feedback. You'll receive a feedback form at the end of the session. Please do fill that out, and then we can try and tailor student sessions and meet kind of your expectations and needs more fully. I know at the moment it's peak exam season for many of you, and you're already facing the confusion of whether you go into schools or remote exam sessions. So again, once I know you're making a real commitment to be here today, so thank you for giving up your time and being here for today. Handing over to Shahada. Good luck, and thank you so much once again.
Thanks a lot, Yasmin, and thank you to the PAL Initiative for having me here today. And a big thank you to everyone who has made the time out of their busy schedules, their exam schedules, to come and join the discussion for today. To kind of give you a background about when I first got approached by the PAL Initiative to come and speak about jobs for the future, like careers and sustainability specifically. Of course, I was very excited and I jumped on board, but that was just before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as you can imagine, things have changed a lot since then. I can easily say that from my personal experience, from my interactions with my leadership, with my colleagues and others within the network, that I can easily say that this topic is on everyone's minds right now with all the changes going on. So yeah, I think I'll be sharing a bit from my personal thoughts, my personal experience, but also a bit of insights from the global conversations that I've been having with young professionals around the world as part of my capacity as a Young Professionals Network community member. And that network is a part of the Energy Institute's Middle East branch, but we have branches all over the world as well. So I might be able to add a bit on kind of to give you more of a global, holistic perspective as well. Before we start, I'd like to kind of start engaging everyone with a quick poll question. I will be launching it, and you should be able to see it pop up on your screen. The question should be up now. So it's basically, how do you expect your industries or your fields will change or will be impacted in the future? I'll give it a few seconds just to get everyone a chance to vote. Okay, looks like we have around 60% voting. It's leading as a positive impact so far, which is very good to hear. Okay, I think it's majorly positive so far. I'll share the results with you, and you should be able to see them on your screen as well. All right, so moving on, I think this is a very good, I'm very happy that you all, like the majority of you, think that it will be positive, or maybe you're not sure. Let's see how you feel and how your thoughts change towards the end of the session. If you'll still think that, you know, maybe the negative people we might win them over to the positive side as well. Okay, so let me kind of give you a bit of a background about why sustainability is important, why we need to consider it as part of every organization's business strategy, their agendas, you know, why they need to be integrated into their long-term planning. And that's basically because there are a lot of market disruption trends that we can see all over now that will really impact the way that we do business. Such as changing geopolitics, which you already see in different areas around the world, and the move towards globalization. And then, of course, we have the emerging regulatory risks, and these are risks from increased regulations on sustainability practices, laws, and these regulations from governments and so on. And they're really pushing for the need to include sustainable development in businesses planning. There's also the transition to sustainable development worldwide. So as a trend, with the UN launching the Sustainable Development Goals, which we will dig deeper in the next slide. We also have changing stakeholder expectations. So that's something that's very, very key, especially in the region right now, whereas maybe, you know, 5-10 years ago, sustainability wasn't really a keyword. It wasn't on everyone's minds, but now we see that stakeholders are becoming more and more aware. We see investors really wanting to future-proof their investments, so they would rather invest in sustainable development than something that's quick and easy. We also have global recognition. So of course, you know, since it's just picking up in the market, whatever companies are kind of being engaging in sustainability activities, they're able to reap a lot of benefits just by being the first ones out there with these accomplishments. So again, these are all kind of disruptions to the way that we do business and the way that we should be considering sustainability, not just now, but also in our long-term planning and in the future. But this all started by, you know, business leaders having dialogues and conversations around sustainability practices and embedding them into their corporate structure. But then that moved on to kind of them being more engaged, you see in the below part of the slide, into voluntary programs. So something like sustainability reporting, which is part of the global reporting initiative that's done on a voluntary basis, but just to showcase the best practices that you as an organization are involved in. And then government started putting in place minimum compliance obligations. So that's more, I would say, more in place in Europe, but then there are a lot of government strategies that we have here in the MENA region, UAE, KSA, Bahrain, Qatar. A lot of these countries have these compliance obligations that would be that organizations need to comply with, that are in line with sustainability, in line with the SDGs. There is also, of course, a lot of you might have heard of corporate social responsibility, or CSR, and now the move is away from these isolated social initiatives and more towards creating shared and long-term value for all stakeholders. So whether it be the employees, such as yourselves in the future, or society, and that includes all of us, as well as investors and shareholders as well. So now let's kind of explore more on the SDGs and what sustainability is, and how sustainability and what it encompasses on a global level as well. So I'm sure a lot of you know that sustainability focuses on meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And basically, there are three pillars of sustainability that we focus on. It's the social, economic, and environmental pillars. And the SDGs were introduced by the UN, the United Nations, as 17 diverse goals. So they cover different areas, but they're very well interconnected with each other. So if you accomplish one goal, or if you do well on one, then you'll be doing very well on several others as well, as a consequence of that. They collectively have around 169 169 targets. There are 17 goals, 169 targets that are planned to be achieved by 2030. So as you can see, they kind of provide a very wide range of area. They cover a wide range of areas, and they provide a very transformative course of action for governments and organizations to take up and to move and transform into a sustainable development economy. Now let's kind of look at why these SDGs might be relevant to you as part of future businesses. So maybe a lot of people on the webinar today are students, are still in their continuing their learning journey, but then you will be future part of the workforce and part of these businesses. And this is why you need to be considering SDGs now and kind of plan your career journey to be able to align to the SDGs in the future. So they kind of provide a universal framework for creating shared value, for addressing the challenges of different countries. So you can see they're very diverse, and it's a set framework that can be applied to any country in the world. They also address a broad set of challenges. So they address equality, they address environmental degradation, climate change, a lot of the concerns of today that we should be kind of mitigating and adapting to in the future. They're also being picked up by a lot of companies right now worldwide. There's a lot of work that's being done to kind of contribute to meeting these SDGs, and a lot of that it's through supporting employment, supporting economic growth, adoption of technologies and innovative solutions, and this is kind of what the core of our conversation today is all about, and what we will dig deeper into in the coming slides as well. Of course, some of these companies who are already working are actually scaling up their efforts, and they're leading organizations when it comes to sustainability adoption, when it comes to alignment with the SDGs. And they're doing that through collaborations with their peers, through industry and sector organization collaborations as well, with the society, with nonprofit organizations, and so on. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, I mean, how does that really help them, other than, you know, getting the global recognition and getting that CSR, like ticking off that CSR box, I would say. But we really believe in the market that linking organizations' strategic priorities to the SDGs can bring about a lot of benefits. I mean, on the top of our head, we can think of benefits from public-private partnerships, because a lot of federal governments and national governments have these strategies and plans to meet SDGs, and by an organization, by actually linking their strategic goals to the SDGs, they're actually contributing to their country's commitments to achieving the SDGs. So it brings about a lot of benefits internally for the organization, from, and we will see it in the next slides, from cutting costs and so on, and improving their performance, but also it gives a very strategic advantage to them when they're comparing their performance to other organizations and their contributions to the national goals and national objectives. So we talked about the public-private partnerships, and what we can see here is that we have the power of three. So we have three pillars of economic growth. We have the government, we have businesses, and we have entrepreneurs as well. So basically, the three of those different groups need to work hand in hand in order to bring about this transformation to sustainable development. We have governments that can kind of set policies, set regulations. They have all the real-time data and the kind of the granular data in order to inform decision-making on a strategic level. And that's the role that they play. We have businesses who actually bring about all of these new technologies, all these innovative solutions, smart assets, planning and kind of driving resilience for the economy, as well as attracting investment and capital. And that's kind of the role that businesses play. And of course, we have entrepreneurs who kind of, jump on the emerging trends, who accelerate their adoption and kind of accelerate the adoption of new technologies and innovative solutions, and kind of test them out and make sure that the adoption spreads around in every different type of industry as well. So as I said, the three of them need to work hand in hand in order to keep the social, economic, and environmental benefits at the center of the collaboration. So these are some of the other benefits that we see to integrating sustainability within the overall business strategy. Again, it provides a very holistic approach to driving competitiveness, to making sure that we're meeting stakeholder demands, investor demands, and so on, and of course adapting to the potential impacts of the global trends and supporting long-term value creation. So we saw earlier that there are these different emerging trends and market disruptors that disrupt the way that we do business. Now we can see how, by integrating sustainability into your overall business strategy, you can actually kind of adapt to those potential impacts that you can see. So you can add value, sustainability can add value to your organization by increasing operational excellence, or actually moving towards operational excellence. Basically, sustainability can enrich and update processes and improve performance. It can also help you identify how you can reduce your operating costs, how you can do that basically through sustainability practices, through conserving your resources. Sustainability can also help you to improve the reliability of your assets and decrease maintenance costs and so on by taking environmental and economic and social aspects into perspective. Another way of how sustainability can add value is through integrated thought. So of course, it provides a very holistic way for organizations to create value by considering the interactions between tangible and intangible assets, as well as kind of providing organizations with a competitive edge with this differentiator of having international recognition and global recognition, as we saw in the previous slides. And then, of course, something that we refer to as an innovation engine, which is basically providing organizations with a new way of innovating new products and considering the environmental and social benefits as well. Of course, we're seeing now, especially with COVID-19, with the current changes, we're seeing a lot of new social impact models emerging. And basically, the boundaries between sustainability considerations and the traditional financial focus is being blurred. So now we see a lot of impacts on the social aspects and a lot of focus on that as well. And lastly, but I think most importantly, sustainability can really increase an organization's resilience, and that is done through helping them interpret social, environmental, and economic changes and anticipating the market needs that the organization will have to adapt to and will have to transform in line with. And I mean, on the topic of resilience as well, I think that's something that's increasingly important during these times of change, important for organizations, but also important for individuals, for all of you as well as students, as young professionals. It's very important to remain resilient and to make sure that you're working on your career journey, working on your personal development in order to get the skills that you will need in the future. And yeah, again, resilience kind of brings us to the changes that are happening. It's a reality that we're adapting to and that we're facing at this point. And I think everyone realizes that the future of work will look very differently to how we imagined it maybe a few months ago even. I think 6 months ago, future of work would have looked a lot more straight out of a science fiction novel rather than how we are seeing things kind of changing today. But let's dig deeper, and then I'd like to hear some of your thoughts with another poll shortly as well. The way that we and a lot of people around the world are seeing change right now to the future of work, it's in these 3 key areas. So we see that there is different work that needs to be done. So a different type of work, whether that's through the different positions that are available in the market for you in the future as future employees, or whether that's actually the type of work that's being done, the type of roles that you're expected to perform. We also see people wanting to work differently. So yeah, we've moved on, for example, for this webinar, you've moved on from attending a lot of these physical events to actually going online, going digital, and having these webinars where maybe they're a bit more accessible for everyone as well. And then we also have people needing to work in different ways. And that's kind of the core of our discussion for today. We're going to be discussing about the different types of skills that people need to acquire and how they need to kind of work on improving those skills in the future as well, because people need to work in different ways. The old ways are no longer fitting this new infrastructure that we have, this new economy that we're heading towards. So now I'd like to kind of take a few seconds or a few minutes for each of these different areas, just to explain to you a bit more about them, starting with the different work that needs to be done. So you see there are different types of roles that will be impacted because of because of change in general, I think because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but change in general that the trends that we've been seeing over the past couple of years in general, which will only actually accelerate and be amplified more by the pandemic and by kind of, this subsequent events in the market. So we have some roles which will be stable, and these are more, I would say, the ones that have to do more from the leadership level, more about people management, more about human resources, risk management, IT analysts, security as well. So these are the ones that kind of have to do with looking in the way that how people do work and trying to kind of add value and manage that process itself. So these jobs will be stable. But then we also have new jobs and new roles that will be emerging because of the change and the move towards digitalization and so on. And these are more, as you can see, focused on like data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, I would say more big data, digital transformation. Of course, there's like sales and marketing, but again, that will be more focused on these new emerging technologies, new emerging markets as well, and not just your traditional, like let's say, door-to-door salesman or so on, which are more of the redundant roles that we see in the on the next column. So these also include some of these repetitive tasks that we do not see the need for at this point. More of the data entry clerks, for example, even accounting, bookkeeping, even some of the financial analysts that kind of need to pour down on different financial statements, and even cashiers, and a lot of these repetitive tasks that we're seeing becoming more and more redundant. And that kind of that is across different industries and across different countries as well. The rate of change will be different, of course, but I mean, this is kind of where the future is heading towards in the long term. And now let's look at how people want to work differently, perhaps. And that's more on, as you can see, there is a digital infrastructure that we have that is helping us to kind of transform our team dynamics. And you can see a lot more of people are being more accepting of working remotely, whereas it wasn't really the norm previously. We see the shift in the use of technology in maintaining this effective communication and virtual interaction through platforms as the one that we're using right now. We also see that there is an increased need for embracing diversity. That's very, very important, since we will be working with people from around the world. Now with like Ramadan, for example, the change in timings and similar things going on in different countries. There is a huge need for us as leaders to stay compassionate, to trust our teams and our colleagues to be doing the job that they need to be doing, even if they're working remotely, not stationed at the office. But I think we all can agree that this is kind of an opportunity to move towards flexible working and maybe remote working models, and kind of maintaining that in the future as well. And that would really impact our lives and kind of support a more healthy work-life balance, which is something sort of close to a myth for someone like me who comes from a consulting background, where we're known to have longer working hours and less focus on the work-life balance. But I really think that this shift and this change is really, it's kind of like a pull mechanism. It's pulling everyone towards that, and it's something that we can really expect in other industries in the future as well, as this becomes the norm of how we do business. And now let's look a bit at some of the skills and some of the ways of how people would need to work in different ways. And you can see here that these are some of the these are the top 10 skills that were essential in 2015. You can see like a lot of focus on people management, on negotiation, control, quality control, and so on. And if we compare that with the essential skills that we see today in 2020, Of course, complex problem solving is still on the top of the list because even with the move towards more technology, towards more digitalization, you would still need that human factor to solve problems and come up with, creative ways. You can see creativity also going up, critical thinking as well, because yes, we do have a lot of machine learning and artificial intelligence coming up, but we still need humans to come up with the logic behind that, to come up with the algorithms behind that, and we need that critical thinking and creativity still there. You can see, however, if you compare 2015 to 2020, you can see that people management and coordinating with others has kind of gone down. And again, that's because we're needing to work with people less and less, or interact with people less and less. It's more of these virtual interactions, one of these digital platforms, and of course incorporating a lot of AI into the way business is done. Emotional intelligence, number 6, which you see was not there in 2015. I think we had something close, which is active listening. But yeah, the idea of emotional intelligence has become increasingly important for everyone to have that skill. Judgment and decision making, it's still there. Service orientation as well. Negotiation has gone down a lot. And again, I think that's also because we have a lot of these tools that we can use now to kind of come up with better deals, to kind of help us with the decision-making approach and with the different processes that we would we would traditionally need to negotiate and discuss over and over again. Cognitive flexibility is also something that was added to the list, and I also perceive that this is something that will be moving up in the future as well. But if you look at 2015, I can see that something like number 6, quality control, that has completely gotten off the list in 2020, again with more focus on standardization, more focus on machine learning and artificial intelligence. We need less and less of quality control because we're standardizing quality at consumption, and it's an inherent quality standards are inherent to the different processes that we have in place at this point. Okay, now let's kind of I want you to take a look at these statistics that we have here. So in 2018, we had humans kind of dominating at the 71% in terms of the market and how processes are done, with 29% for machines. I'll launch another poll question for you to see what you would expect, or how do you imagine the world in the next 5 years, and how do you imagine that split to be in the future. So you should be able to see the poll coming up on your screen shortly. Just take a second and try to think about, how this would impact your industries, your fields, and try and kind of think of or predict how the split would be. And we will see the answer in the coming slides. Okay, I think we had around 67 participants, 70 now. I'll give it a few more seconds just to give you a chance to think it through and see. Okay, let's launch the results for you now. I think you should be able to see them. So I think the majority of people said around 42%. Yeah, you're 10% off, I would say. But still, it's interesting to see actually that around 22 of you thought it would be around 82%. which is way off from the 52 that we're seeing here in 2025. That just kind of gives me an idea about where you're coming from and how you're imagining the world in the next 5 years. I mean, yes, there will be a lot of automation, but it would still be around 50% or so. It would not be 80%. We will still need humans to perform a lot of the tasks that machines can't. But with that being said, I'd like to kind of launch another poll and ask you what do you think would be included in the top skills of the future? So let's see. I mean, of this 52%, how do you imagine kind of, the world to be moving towards? What are the key areas that you would see? And it's kind of a trick question because a lot of them are very similar. So I feel like I've been mentioning artificial intelligence and machine learning a lot throughout the discussion. So it's leading by a majority of 72% already. But let's give it a bit more time. Okay, so it is leading by 71%, and I mean it's true. It's some of the some of the skills that we saw, or some of the trends that we saw globally, would include a lot of new roles when it comes to artificial intelligence, machine learning, but it would also include cloud computing. It would also include virtual and augmented reality. It would include all of these things. However, the focus is not on them. So this is kind of the the message that I would like to kind of impart today. So we have these 10 top skills of the future. Again, a big focus on creativity, a big focus on emotional intelligence, analytical or critical thinking, and judgmental decision making. These are the 4 which we could already see in the 2020 or the current skills that are important for us. But the new ones are highlighted in a different color, and they're extremely important for you individually to keep in mind and to work on building up your skills in those different aspects. So we have active learning with a growth mindset. So the move from a fixed mindset of doing things in a certain way and expecting the same results and expecting success by doing steps 1, 2, 3, moving away from that and moving towards a growth mindset, and basically embracing change, being resilient, embracing talent fluidity as well. So having talents that can be used across different sectors, across different job roles as well. So the move towards growth mindsets is something that's very, very important, especially as you move from being students in universities, kind of having a very clear-cut set of tasks for your exams, for your coursework, and moving towards the workforce and understanding that it's not always very clear-cut. You need to kind of find your own way and work on your own career journey. We also have interpersonal communication skills. These are extremely important. So again, we will still, even with the technology, even with the move towards virtual interactions, it will still be even more important now for us to have great communication skills, to be able to kind of read these social cues and these little things that people do here and there, and to be able to understand and kind of relate to those and react to them in an appropriate way, which is again more in line with the emotional intelligence and developing that for yourselves. We also have leadership skills, which will still continue to be very, very important. And again, as we move towards maybe more decentralized teams, maybe we're working remotely, we're not in touch with all of the team members, we don't see them in the office, so it's even more important for leaders to be more connected to their teams. We also have diversity and cultural intelligence. So again, as we're working with people around the world, embracing diversity and inclusiveness, and being very culturally aware of the different cultures would be something that is very needed in the future. Technology skills. So this is kind of, as you can see here, I mean, everyone has kind of agreed that it would be one of the three, and I didn't give another option on purpose because I wanted to see if you were really thinking along those lines and what would you be choosing. But yeah, technology skills are just one of the 10 future skills that you will need. They're still focused on embracing change, on being resilient, having growth mindset, on these other aspects that we should not be neglecting for the sake of technology skills and digitalization and so on. And yeah, so again, these are some of the technologies that will be adopted by companies. So I think the reason why everyone is thinking about technology and those kind of skills when they think about the future, it's because we see these technologies being adopted, and we see them kind of being deployed by companies, and we think that this is the future and this is what we need to build ourselves towards. But then you will still need all the basic skills. So these are just the technologies that will be adopted, but you will still need to work with teams. You will still need to do the usual things that you would do as part of any team or work environment. But moving on to the technologies, so yes, there is a big focus on big data analytics, more focus on Internet of Things, machine learning, cloud computing. So all of these, so you can see now the percentages of these different adoption adoption percentages of the different technologies by different businesses. So you see a lot of encryption, biotechnology, robotics, 3D printing. And basically that kind of gives you an idea about how these technologies can actually impact your chosen field or your industry as applicable. And here we can see kind of some of the positive and negative impacts that we can see. So on a positive level, we have, big data can actually help with business growth. You understand more about data trends, and you can actually use that to benefit and drive decision making. You have artificial intelligence. You have kind of a lot of mobile internet. You have a lot of these different applications and technologies that can actually drive business in different parts of the world. But then we can also see some negative impacts, for example, data protectionism. Again, as we move towards the use of data, now it's becoming increasingly important with all these rules and regulations to kind of protect consumers' data. There's also threats of cybersecurity threats. That's also increasingly important. Ideas like blockchain and bitcoins and so on, they were kind of invented because people needed a way to have a more secure platform and to kind of prevent cyber threats. But as we move towards kind of having everything on a digital platform and having blockchain implemented, there will be some additional threats that we might not be aware of today that will come up as well. Again, effects of climate change, which is something that I feel very strongly about. Yeah, I think the move towards mitigation and adaptation earlier on can really kind of help to prevent some of those risks and negative impacts on business growth in the future. And now kind of moving on to how the workforce kind of can change. These are 6 different aspects. So we talked about skills. We also have having the right site, the right source, the right size of the team, the shape of the team, and the hierarchy, and kind of having spending diverted away from the usual towards more on getting more people reskilled and upskilled to be able to perform the jobs that they need to. And again, now kind of moving on to the roadmap for success that I've imagined for you, starting with the key pathways for change. So again, you need to identify your existing skills, knowledge, and competencies. You need to kind of identify your current state, and then understand some of the future demand and how you can, bridge those gaps that you will identify by adopting the right mix of education, training, professional development. So it's a mix of all these three. Don't focus too much on one, but kind of have a mix of the three of them, and that will really help you to kind of maximize your benefits. You should also be looking at informal training opportunities, networking, so something like today's webinar, but also some other training opportunities that you will see, which is more readily available now. You also need to look at how to kind of, future-proof your growth and have future-ready strategies. And that's also by investing in, digital fluency and, information and computer technology competencies that we've looked at before, which are very, very important. You need to also have or work towards getting an early exposure to workplace environments. So I think a lot of you on the call are students, so maybe look at internships, look at these placement opportunities, and again, of course, keep a growth mindset and build and sustain your motivation for learning and improving in the future. And kind of a last step for you to ensure your continual improvement, you need to embrace the talent fluidity that you can see, and basically that's having talents that are fluid to move across different sector roles, move across different positions in organizations, and they're kind of more focused on the soft skills, and the communication skills, the one that we saw in the previous slides. You need to also seek career guidance, and this is true for all of us, for everyone in every position. Career guidance, mentorship, coaching is very, very important, and we all need that in certain aspects of our careers. And lastly, continuing to set, assess, and evaluate your goals and targets is very, very important to help you, keep them in mind and to help you kind of reach your end goal. I think I'd like to see if we have any questions, and to see if anyone wants to discuss anything or raise any questions, then please feel free to do so. I'll give it a few seconds just to see if we have any questions. Okay, I'm not able to see a lot of questions. I'm not sure if you're asking any, or if you know how to. There is a chat box that you're able to ask questions on. Okay, I think I've just put up like a questions in the chat box in case you would like to ask any questions and you're not sure how to. Otherwise, I think yeah, I'll just give you with my closing remarks, which is basically to keep in mind that although we have all these new technologies and all these different skills that you need to be aware of on a technical side, it's very, very important for you to keep in mind all the human behavioral skills that you need to work on, to focus a bit more on your career path, your journey, and again, like I'm kind of keeping that in mind, your continual improvement, embracing these different skills that will kind of help you having a fluid transition between different topics, between different sectors, and so on. So yeah, I think that's kind of my closing remark. I can see that we have some questions, so let me try to see some now. I think that's in the chat. I think the questions are different. Sorry, I think I might have told you to put it in the chat box, but no worries. I think the question that we have is, should we try to acquire some of the technological skills mentioned, like artificial intelligence by learning programming, for example, or leave those to IT specialists? And that is a question from Sayed, I think. So I would say, Sayed, I would say that, I mean, it depends really on your sector. It depends really on, you know, where you're coming from, what you see with, you know, your future progression. So it, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's something you pick up or you leave. I think, you know, learning programming and getting more into the technical side of things, that would only make sense, I would say, if you are very technical, and if that's your background, if you want to be, you know, in IT, if you want to be in, you know, cloud computing, if you want to be involved in machine learning and artificial intelligence and so on. But I mean, as you saw, there are some new areas that you can still explore. And that doesn't really have to, you know, you don't need to have these technical skills. I would say it's very important to have the fundamental skills that we saw, which are the soft skills, you know, the communication, machine learning, communication and emotional intelligence and so on. And, you know, the other ones, the technical ones, can be an add-on to your existing career journey. Okay, I think another question, is there a certificate from Rima? And I think, I'm not sure for which section of the presentation you were asking for, but yes, I mean, I would encourage you all to kind of look at some of the learning opportunities to work on your other skills that are not just the technical ones. I think it's sometimes difficult for students to embrace a growth mindset. I agree. I agree with that, actually. Yes, it is very difficult, and that's something that we all need to kind of embrace and learn to adapt to. Especially now with the current changes, it's becoming very, very important for us. Another question is, thank you. It was very informative. How do you think environmental sustainability and automation can impact the operations of SMEs? As in, see, no, I think that's a different question. Okay, so I think, again, I think environmental sustainability and embracing aspect of sustainability is very, very important for SMEs. I think automation would really depend on the kind of work that you're in, because I would say that automation is something that can be done better at a larger scale, especially when you have, like, you know, more of these repetitive tasks. So I would say something like, you know, the audit industry, you know, financial auditing and so on. That would be something that would really take up automation. Whereas for SMEs, you know, it might be on a different scale. You might actually choose to outsource some of the tasks rather than have them, you know, have them as part of your actual business model. Another question. Do you see a growing link between AI and sustainability? Yes, I really do. Thank you for that question, Rory, actually. Yeah, I think different aspects. So I think artificial intelligence really can be applied to very different areas of, you know, of what we do when it comes to sustainability industry. So you can have, for example, you know, you can have robotics that are being used now, especially like you can have drones that are being used for health and safety and environment inspections, you know, for kind of, you know, doing these regular maintenance activities and maintenance inspections, instead of having or deploying, you know, big team of people to do these regular inspections. You can have drones actually on the ground doing those. That saves you time, that saves you effort, salaries, you know, a lot of, you can invest your talent into doing work that brings more value to organizations. That's one aspect. You can also kind of use that when it comes to optimizing your grid. So, you know, making sure you cut down the losses, you optimize switches between different energy sources and so on. So I think, yes, there is a scope for, you know, having any of these different technologies in every sector. And there is a big link with sustainability, especially as we reduce, cut down on the losses and the costs, and we're able to kind of divert those investments into a better option. What advice would you give for those who have trouble deciding what they want to pursue in the future? I would tell you to pursue that's something that you're passionate about, and I would say that do not limit yourself or do not restrict yourself to a certain field. My background is in mechanical engineering, and when I was, in my bachelor's, I was planning to kind of go into more in the energy sector, or maybe the oil and gas sector, and so on. But then when I graduated, I realized, global trends are moving towards sustainability, to greener economies, and so on. And I decided to join another boutique consultancy firm that deals with that, with green economies and so on. So I think do not restrict yourself. That's kind of along the lines of having a growth mindset. Do not restrict yourself to certain industries. I mean, I'm working with the energy sector. I'm working with key players here in UAE and in the region, in the MENA region. But then again, from a different side. So instead of being more on the operational side, I'm actually more on supporting them and advising them on how they can move towards sustainability practices and embedding those in their organization. Hope that answers your question, and good luck. I hope you find something that you're happy with. I think we've kind of answered all the questions. Sorry if I've missed anything out. But I thank you again for joining us today, for your time. I hope that you can this will add to your career journey, and please reach out to me personally if you have any other questions, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Thank you all, and goodbye.